mean, it all started in high school. I was that really awkward kid out. I went through that really awkward gothic stage, which I have no idea why, but throughout my whole high school I was picked on and bullied, and because of my face. I was mauled by a dog when I was 4 years old, so I have a Harry Potter scar. And everybody always thinks it's a dimple, and it's actually where the dog's tooth went in. So everybody would always tease me, and I don't know, my brain, just the way it kind of took everything is, I don't know what the point is of being here anymore. And throughout high school, I think I had 3 different attempts to commit suicide. They all failed, all because of my friends. They're great friends now, but then I hated them. But I tried overdosing a couple of times, and I tried to drown myself once, and it just never worked. But then I kind of just strived forward, pushed forward, and focused on my studies. And then I was introduced to technical theater, and that's where it all kind of evened out, because it was finally, I found my happy place. Something to keep my mind going at all times, to where I didn't have to worry about the outside world. I didn't care what they thought. And I just kind of dove in and found my passion and stuck with it. So, I mean, that helped me. And then I think it was in 2009 or 2010. It was on a weekend. My dad went four-wheeling, and I remember before he left, he asked me and my mom if we wanted to go with him, and we both said, no, we're just going to sit here and wait for the phone call, because we both just woke up with this really weird feeling. And then we got a phone call saying that he had crashed his four-wheeler and he broke his back, and he's not moving, and they life flighted him, and they tried this experimental surgery on him where they took like this coil that looks like a hot hair curling, and I don't know what they're called. But they used that, and they basically ground up the bone that was broken and stuffed it inside of it and fused it into his back. And he had to wear like this turtle shell. But that's what began his downhill spiral, because he started getting addicted to his pain medication. And his pain medication started not working because he took it so much. He would get 6-month prescriptions of his pain medication. They'd last him maybe 2 months, because just nothing was helping the pain anymore. And we could see kind of him going downhill. His attitude was spiking so much, and he'd be happy 1 second, and then just he'd be mad at the world the next second, which drove my mom away basically. And they, in 2010 is when they separated for like a year. And then they got back together and said, let's try and work this out, and didn't work. So in 2013, in July of 2013, they separated again, except for it was a lot harder, and he ended up moving out, and he said he wanted to get his own apartment, but I knew with where his mind was, I didn't feel safe with him having an apartment by himself, because I knew something was going to happen. So I sat down, had a conversation with my mom, and we both decided it'd be best for me to just go and get an apartment with him, just so he kind of had someone there to talk to. And then 3 days after we signed our lease, I remember the night before, we watched Rocky Horror Picture Show and ate steak. And he sent a text message to my mom saying, having a great night with my daughter. I couldn't imagine anything better. And we went to bed, and I slept on the floor because my stuff hadn't been moved over yet. And then I got up, and I went to work the next day. And all throughout work, I just had this gut-wrenching feeling. And I was sick all day, and I couldn't stop crying, and I knew something was wrong. But my work wouldn't let me go home. They said, if you leave, you don't have a job. And I have to have a job. So after work, I went home, and I packed some stuff into a U-Haul that I had rented, and I said, I'm going to run home really fast and let the dogs out, because they've been inside all day. And I went home, and I saw my dad's car parked outside, and it was backed in, which is really odd for him, and I felt like that was just, something's not right there. And I walked inside, and anybody who knows my dad knows he doesn't go anywhere without his sunglasses. And his sunglasses were sitting on the counter. But I just kind of blew it off and said, well, whatever. He had a doctor's appointment that day. He was going to get a shot, but those shots were making his stomach hurt, and I knew it was bothering him. So I just figured my Uncle Steve could have come and gotten him, and he just forgot his sunglasses. He's getting forgetful. Just kind of whatever, and blew it off. And then I walked through our kitchen, and we have like this dining area that was off to the side that had built-in shelving. And I noticed everything was still in boxes, but on the shelves there was his dog's ashes, a picture of his dog, and then the picture I'd given him for his birthday, which was on July 18th, because he passed away a week after his birthday. So I gave him a picture of me and him wearing our life vests from when we went on a cruise, and they made us put them on and do that stupid little drill to make sure we know what lifeboat to go to. And we were both just acting like complete idiots. So I put it in a picture frame and wrote in this really long letter saying how much he means to me and stuff. And he had it all set up like a shrine type thing on the mantle. And I was like, okay, I don't know why he didn't set up everything else, but whatever. And I remember going in my bedroom, and I sat down and I opened my laptop, and it connected to his phone's hotspot. And I was like, well, that's weird. So I got up and I went in his room, and I was like calling out for him, just asking like, are you here? Like, where are you? And I couldn't see his phone anywhere. And I was like, okay, well, maybe he's outside walking the dogs, because the dogs weren't in the apartment initially. And then I walked out, and I went out to the balcony and yelled over, just trying to see if he was out there, and he didn't answer. And then my neighbors brought the dogs over and said he asked me to take him for a walk. And I was like, well, that's kind of weird that you'd ask a complete stranger to take our dogs for a walk. So I brought the dogs inside, and they started pacing back and forth from the door to his closet door in his bedroom to the door, and just kept going back and forth. And I couldn't get him to calm down. So I went back in my room and I sat down. I tried to get him to lay down with me. I got back on my laptop, but it was still bothering me that it was connecting to his hotspot, but I couldn't find his phone. So I checked in the bedroom again, and I remember looking over at the closet, and I could see the light coming through the closet. And I knew I just had like this instant, my gut just dropped. And I walked over to the closet, and I remember in my head, a week prior, we had found a suicide note that he had written. It was like 5 pages long, telling my mom how horrible of a person she is, that this is all her fault. The only person he can trust is our friend Tabitha, and that he loved me. And at the very bottom, in big letters, it said, "Don't open the door." And that played through my head, but I didn't think about it. And I opened the door, and that's when I found him hanging off of his, the clothes hanger bar from his work belt. And I remember him holding his phone in one hand, and his laptop was on the ground, and his tablet was on the ground. And on the phone was a text message to Tabitha saying, "I'm sorry, I can't do it anymore." And I remember slamming the door and just screaming "no" at the top of my lungs and running around the apartment. And then I went back to the closet, and I tried to get him down, thinking I could save him, and I couldn't. I knew it was too far, because his face was already bloated on one side and sagging. I remember running outside, and my neighbors were walking up the stairwell holding groceries, and I was yelling, "Help me." And they just ignored me and walked up the stairs. So I called 911, and I went out in the hallway, or I went down the stairs out and called 911. And my neighbor from Orem is a dispatcher for Pleasant Grove, and he answered the phone. And I explained what was going on, and I couldn't stay on the phone because I couldn't breathe, and I just laid on the ground crying. And then I remember after I hung up with 911, immediately my friend Jake, who was the dispatcher, had called me and said, "Jess, I just talked to you. What's going on?" I told him what's going on. He immediately rushed over. He said, I don't know what to do, but I'll be here. And he just sat there on the ground and held me. But after so long, obviously, he had to go back to work. But I remember after that, I tried calling my mom 4 or 5 times. She didn't answer the phone at all. It just kept going to voicemail. And then I called my little brother, Chris, and he wouldn't answer. So I called his wife. She answered, and I said, "Dad's gone. I need to talk to Chris. Dad's gone." She said, "Oh my God, I'm so sorry." And then she hung up and called Chris. And then Chris's mom called, and everybody was calling after that point. But I remember also calling Tabby, and I said, "Tabby, I need you to come over. I'm not going to tell you what's wrong over the phone, but I need you to come over." I gave her my address, and she said, "I'm on my way." And then the cops showed up, and obviously they have like who are they called? She's like a counselor lady who basically gives you all these stupid brochures that you're never going to use right at that moment of your situation. And she just sat there and asked me a million questions on how I was feeling, and I was like, "I don't want to talk right now." I remember looking up the stairs and seeing the paramedic walk out and immediately just made complete eye contact with me and made this movement to me. And I completely lost it. Because no one wants to see that. You're not supposed to show the person that's going out through that situation that. But then Tabby showed up, and she ran up the stairs with her hand on her gun because she had a concealed weapons permit, thinking that it was a domestic dispute between me and my dad. And she was ready to defend me in whatever way possible. But as soon as she ran up the stairs and saw me on the ground, she immediately collapsed and almost fell down the stairs because she knew what happened. She just had that feeling. And, I mean, that's basically what I replay in my mind every night when I sleep, is that moment of walking in his room and seeing the light and just screaming no constantly. It's an everyday thing. Halloween's really hard for me because everybody thinks that a hanging man is a really amazing decoration, and it's not. Because it brings back that kind of stuff and flashbacks. But since then, it's kind of been a learning experience, but making it through slowly. The little things still trigger me.